From the mountains of central British Columbia to you around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters, and we welcome you to tonight's show, including Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where you can read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, listen to the show live. The Gavinator has new features coming very, very soon. Tonight's show is brought to you by the Mighty Moose Beard Oil Company. It's 100% Canadian, 100% natural, taking care of beards around the world. Visit MightyMooseBeard.com. Don't forget to use promo code SOR 2019. Dr. Kirk Honda has been practicing psychology since 1996 and is a professor at Antioch University since 1998. He is the host of the Psychology in Seattle podcast, which has over 700 episodes on topics such as theory, advocacy, and pop culture. During his podcast, Dr. Honda has also taken a long look at the sinister minds of some of the world's most notorious serial killers, from the Green River Killer Gary Ridgway to Ted Bundy. Dr. Honda has looked into the minds of what causes people to have the urge to hurt and potentially kill on a frequent basis. We'll find out what this is all about. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Dr. Kirk Honda, we take the time to say hello to you and welcome to Spaced Out Radio.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to talking with you.
We're looking forward to hearing you too. You know, when you decided that you wanted to get into becoming a doctor and getting into psychology and psychotherapy, what intrigued you about the human mind that you wanted to figure out what people were all about?
Well, I grew up like anyone else in relationships with my family and friends, and I suppose early dating in high school and college. And big concern to me was how to cultivate relationships that was mutually beneficial to everybody. That was one thing. Another thing was just observing other people. And, you know, I as a young child, my family would say that I was very observant. That was what the description they would have for me. At the age of like 3 or 4 or 5, they said that I would just like stare at everyone, the family, my older siblings, just like watching everyone do things. And so I suppose there's a little bit of that, just a fascination with the human condition.
Was there anything or any type of event that kind of triggered that way, or was it just that natural curiosity growing up?
Nothing particular. I mean, I went to therapy when I was about, 22 or something, because I just felt like I wanted to talk about things. I wanted to get things off my chest. And I felt like my friends weren't the best listeners, college-age boys in Seattle. And so I think that might have planted the seed, but I hadn't thought about being a therapist until this one day I was in traffic. I was working at a business that was a contractor for Microsoft here in Seattle. And I was on a track to become a business person, wear a suit, go to the office 9 to 5. And I just saw my life sort of stretched out before me. And I thought, okay, it's not a bad life. But I thought there's got to be something else that feels more meaningful to me. And I thought, well, how about a teacher? And I was like, no, I don't really like speaking in front of people. And I don't like corralling kids. And then being a therapist just popped into my head.
Well, that's kind of cool. So you kind of fell into it, and that has led to some very intriguing conversations. As you started to study people, was there a specific type of person that really, really piqued your interest? Whether male, female, I guess gender really doesn't matter in regards to it. But was there something that kind of piqued your interest on how the human body and the human mind works?
Well, in the beginning, since I'm a musician, I wanted to become a therapist for bands. like Metallica or the Smashing Pumpkins or something. And
good choices.
So that really intrigued. Yeah, because bands like the Beatles, they break up and it makes me really sad. And I always think, man, if they just had a therapist to help them talk about their feelings, they'd still be together. And as a person who has been in a number of bands myself, I've always said that being in a band, being a musician, working with other musicians is like being married, but you don't have sex with each other unless you're Fleetwood Mac or something. But you don't get to have the sort of intimacy that bonds a marriage together. Yet you have all the same ups and downs, the same intimacy, the same conflict. And bands don't usually think about going to a therapist, but as soon as I graduated from graduate school, I soon realized that bands didn't want to go to therapy, so I had to switch to a different sort of focus.
Well, growing up in Seattle, I mean, man, in the 90s there, you had your pick. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Between Nirvana and, Guns N' Roses, Duff McKagan was from there, Temple of the Dog, Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden. You really had your pick. I mean, that was a good time in Seattle's music days.
Yeah, it was a time when music was fresher in the early 90s anyway, for us anyway, and it seemed that everyone was in a band, including me.
But it wasn't your turn. You were hanging out at the wrong clubs, man. You didn't have enough grunge.
That's right.
Or maybe enough heroin. One of the two.
Maybe that was the secret ingredient I never had.
Well, it worked for a few people, that's for sure. So as you started to kind of make your place in your niche in your career, how did it end up turning into serial killers and concentrating on some of the most warped minds that could be out there?
Well, to be clear, I'm not an expert on serial killers. In fact, in your intro, you talked about the Green River Killer. I don't think I've ever talked about the Green River Killer. I actually don't know that much. I've talked about Ted Bundy a few times, and I suppose other psychopaths and sadists. What really drew me to it, because in my practice, I actually don't, I rarely treat these sorts of people. I've never treated a serial killer. Those are pretty rare individuals, but psychopaths I've treated very rarely. But the fascination or the interest or the studying of it actually began when I started my podcast, which I started 11 years ago. And people would send in questions. And a very popular thing that people wanted me to talk about were people like Ted Bundy, Charlie Manson, this sort of thing. And so I started to study it. Started to study psychopathy, antisocial, sadism, Machiavellianism, dark tetrad, all the kinds of things. And over the years, I have, learned enough where I can speak with some authority on it. Although people who actually treat these people in institutions would know much more than me.
Well, in regards to some of the topics that you've studied, whether it's Charles Manson or Ted Bundy, for people who may not know what a lot of these terms are, what exactly is a psychopath?
So psychopaths are people who fit the criteria that Hare put forth. There's 20 items. The notable ones to think about are lack of empathy, impulsivity, callousness, charming, pathological lying, using other people for your own gain, criminal versatility, meaning you tend to commit a wide variety of different types of crimes, sexual promiscuity, irresponsibility, bad planning. There's a very classic profile of someone who does this sort of thing that we call a psychopath.
Is everybody, or does everybody have that ability to all of a sudden snap and go down that road? Like, what takes the mind into that area?
Generally, it's hard to know. We barely understand anything about the brain and behavior in terms of why. Was it evolution? Is it in the genes? Is it environment? But from the prevailing wisdom, the consensus is that some people are born with the disposition that could lead them to psychopathy, and pair that up with experiences that are difficult, traumatic, and cultivate that sort of psychopathic personality, then that's what usually blossoms into a psychopath. So you could be treated poorly, really badly, but if you don't have the genetic disposition for psychopathy, then the prevailing wisdom is you won't develop it. So you need the building blocks, so to speak. But you could take someone who has the genetic disposition, and if you treat them well enough growing up, they might not actually develop into what would be labeled as a psychopath, although they might have some traits.
So with that, does that start out at childhood with maybe being in an abusive home, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse?
Yeah, absolutely. The classics, as you mentioned, but it could be a lot of things. There's a lot of other kinds of mistreatment, or sometimes it's just a bad match between parents and kid, where the parents are very extroverted, very active, and the kid is very introverted and very quiet. And the parent and the kid just never really understand each other. And that can lead to the child growing up in an environment where they just don't feel loved or secure the way they look around at their siblings who are perhaps more extroverted. And they just feel bad about themselves. And, you repeat that day in and day out for years and years. And that can be just as damaging as just flat out abuse.
Isn't that what happened in the Columbine shootings with the two killers there, Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris? Because weren't they bullied? Weren't they feeling that they were more introverted?
I actually don't know that much about them. I remember learning about them years ago, so I can't speak to them specifically. I do know that they felt bullied. It's hard to know with teenagers because young minds, young brains are still developing. And, if you've been around kids or you have kids, you see that things change and their personality changes. 1 year they're sullen and in their bedrooms all the time. And the next year they're out and about and, mixing it up with everybody. And it's just hard to know. So those two boys, if they had grown up and managed not to do that, would they have grown up to be, consistently psychopathic and problematic with people around them? Or would they have just grown up was it just a phase that they could have grown out of? We'll just never know, obviously. So it's hard to say, but it's likely that because wasn't one of them more influential on the other in that relationship?
I believe so.
Yeah, so at least one of them probably had some sort of conduct disorder. And, of course, experts on those two individuals probably have like a ton of psychohistory that they can pull upon in terms of abuse and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is that for every one or two of those boys who do just horrific, atrocious things, there are thousands of other boys with the exact same background, the exact same dispositional traits with access to guns, and they don't do that. So it's a huge mystery as to what causes, so to speak, individuals to take that leap.
Is it a fine line, though? Especially in the teenage years where, I don't want to go down the path of school shootings or get too heavily into them, but we see a lot of that over the last few years. And we've seen a lot of innocence, lost in children going to school. I mean, who would have thought back when you or I were growing up, or most of our listeners growing up, that you'd have to have armed guards at school? I mean, that just seems incredulous.
Right. So there's two factors at play. There's a lot of factors at play, but the two factors that are different than when you and I were growing up was, one, suicide rates are rising, so especially among young people. So most of these individuals, in my opinion, it's not, obviously their murderous behavior is awful, but the primary concern should be on their suicidal motivations. because they're often suicidal. They often want to die, and that's where it begins. They're hopeless. They feel thwarted by other people. They don't feel like it's ever going to change, and they want to kill themselves. And countless people in the United States and around the world, they just kill themselves. And it's quiet, doesn't make the news, and it's not very interesting to the internet. But every once in a while, some of those individuals say, you know what, before I go out, I'm going to take some people out with me because I'm angry at the way I've been treated. And so those are the people that we hear about. But it's really the suicide. So suicide's on the rise. The second thing that's different about when we were kids is the media. So when we were kids, if someone did something like this, it would take, I don't know, maybe a week or so. Maybe it would show up on the weekend newspaper and it would be on page 3 or something. And it definitely wouldn't make national news because there just wasn't that conduit, and maybe it would make it to some newspaper, some print or something. Today, people can film while they're doing it to Facebook Live or some other streaming thing. So they know that they can get that kind of attention, and they know that after they die, due to the way we react to these things in the media, that their name and their face and their manifesto and their life story will be plastered everywhere, and there will be multiple books and pieces and movies and documentaries made about them, and they feel somewhat vindicated, like, they want to be heard and they want to tell their story, and they feel like no one's listening, and so this is their way to get it out.
So are you saying then that the majority of these horrific mass shootings are more copycat for attention than somebody actually wanting to go out and say, look, I know I'm going out, but I'm going to take as many people with me and screw the world?
Well, I can't say for sure. No one can, because there's no way to know exactly. Even if you talk to them, you're not sure if they're going to give you an honest answer or an accurate answer. But the data seems to show that. So on a smaller level or a less internet interesting level is copycat suicide. So we know that when a suicide, and this has been known for decades, that when a suicide is reported, like a famous person kills himself, or someone kills himself in a very flashy manner that makes the news, we know, according to many, many studies, that will increase suicide in wherever that is reported, particularly if it's reported in the typical sensational news-ish sort of way. So that now with mass murder suicides, those are much more infrequent events. So it's harder for us to gather enough data to draw any sort of correlation. But there's strong evidence for that, for sure.
Let's talk about the social media aspect of everything here, because with the ability to go on Facebook Live or Periscope or Twitter Live or YouTube or all of these different streaming areas with video, is there a thought then for a lot of these people who are doing this to try and make it as vulgar as they potentially can in order to one-up the person who did it before?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, if you spend any time in certain corners of the internet, there is absolutely that sort of element, 4chan, for example. And it's true. You wake up in the morning and you have low self-esteem and you feel like you don't have any friends, or you feel sort of beat down from work, or your marriage isn't going that well, and you just want to have some fun. You want some attention. We all know what it feels like to get, you post a picture on Facebook and you get a lot of likes and you're like, oh, wow, it feels nice to get that affirmation. But if that's all you have and you fall into a certain corner of the internet and you kind of figure out the rules of the game in that corner, then yeah, that's what happens. And there are cases where that spins out of control, where people end up harming other people in some ways.
So do you believe then that the state of violence that children see on TV, whether it's television, whether it's video games, movies, does that play a role in not only children and teenagers growing up, but in young adults, or change the idea that killing, or there is some sort of romanticism with killing?
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer as well, because we have to look at things sort of globally and trends, and there's a lot of factors in culture and society that change over time. And there's been a lot of studies that look at the effects, short-term, long-term, when you expose young people to images of violence. And the general consensus, and I'm not an expert in this area, but from my memory, the general consensus is that for certain vulnerable individuals, that kind of concentrated exposure, long-term exposure to certain kinds of images can affect them. But in general, the vast majority of young people know the difference between fantasy violence and real violence. And so there doesn't seem to be negative effects to most young people, but for some young people, it's something definitely to be looking at.
Does society's role, as we only got about a minute here before we go to break at the bottom of the hour, but does society's role as, maybe not helping or treating everybody equal? I'm thinking, going back to when my daughter was in elementary school and everybody got that participation badge. There was no winners or losers anymore. Does that affect anything differently when it's so against the norm of what society in the real world is like?
I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer that in 1 minute, Dave.
Well, you know what? Why don't you start, and then we can carry on with that after the break, because I think that's an important question. Yeah.
Well, interrupt me when you got to go to break. It's a very complicated thing. Again, a lot of things change over time. Basically, what you're talking about is the self-esteem movement for children,
yes,
which is the notion that kids need to have good self-esteem. And when we create certain kinds of contests and massive pressure on kids, that can actually lead to some people who win and they get the good self-esteem, and a lot of people are going to lose and they're going to get the bad self-esteem. So certainly that's not good for children's development, right, if you do that a lot.
Right.
And that's,
you know what? Let's hold off right there. We will get back. Dr. Kirk Honda is our guest tonight. Psychology of Serial Killers and the Mind, right here on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be back with more psychological evaluations right after this. Hey, Spaced Out Radio listeners, it's Dave Scott. I want you to check out a great documentary I'm involved in called Beyond the Spectrum, Mosson's UFO Files. Directed by Darcy Weir, the film follows Jaime Mosson's journey for mainstream journalistic truth in ufology in Mexico. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon Prime. If you're a member, watch it free. It's worth the watch. Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio, you can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Did you know Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm here to take you on a paranormal journey each Saturday and Sunday night. Why change the station when you have it all right here? Together, we'll hang out and share some strange and scary stories. And don't forget, we have Psychic Sundays as well, so come tune in Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com, where we own the night.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Coming up this September 21st and 22nd, all UFO eyes will be focused on Toronto for the 4th Annual Alien Cosmic Expo. Come listen to some of the biggest names and experiencers in ufology. Travis Walton, Paul Hellyer, Richard Dolan, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Randy Kramer, and Spaced Out Radio's own Dave Scott. Tickets are on sale now at aliencosmicexpo.com.
Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the Captain's Chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. Reminder, if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can always go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where you can read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, listen to the show live. The Gavinator is going to have brand new features coming up very, very soon. Tonight we are talking about the psychology of serial killers. Joining us from Seattle, Washington is Dr. Kirk Honda. He is a psychotherapist. He's been doing that for about 20 years now. You also can catch his podcast, the Psychology in Seattle podcast, on iTunes, as well as other areas. Dr. Honda, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio.
Thanks. This is fun.
Now, right before the break, I had asked you about video games and the way children are perceiving them with the violence and everything, and you said it was going to take a long time, so I think we should restart there in regards to the forming of the mind on how it accepts murder, blood. And I'm actually was quite surprised by your answer that's saying that children, even at a young age, know the difference between video game violence and everyday human violence.
It's true. I mean, to take an extreme example, like when you and I were kids, I have a feeling you played Pac-Man when you were a kid, maybe?
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know how old you are. Okay. So when we played Pac-Man, that was a simulated, some sort of circle thing that was eating something. We understood that was not real. It was fantasy. And when the ghosts came out to kill us and we died, we knew that that was fantasy. So we all understand that because it doesn't really look human and this sort of thing. Well, with young people today, they're acclimated to this video game world, and some of the games look extremely real. And yet they still look at it the same way that we looked at Pac-Man. They understand that it's not real. And we've done, studies on this sort of thing where you take kids who play, 1 or 2 or 3 hours a day of extreme violent video games, or they watch violent movies, and you ask them a bunch of questions, you observe their behavior, you might even show them actual clips of real violence, not, extreme violence, but something like that. And you'll see a very different reaction, not only what they say, but also physiologically.
So with that, how do they not come with that bloodlust yet? Because, I remember playing Cops and Robbers or Army Men or whatever, and you shoot your friend and they fall down dead or whatever. But it was never anything that showed blood. It was never anything that showed anything. I mean, up here in Canada, the only time you really saw blood was when you're playing hockey and somebody, you're watching a hockey fight on TV or at the hockey rink or something like that. And that was okay because you knew it happened inside the rink in a controlled environment. Whereas with the video games today, the way they perceive everything to be so lifelike and real, isn't that numbing for a child to see that?
Apparently not. We don't see kids, we see a reduction in crime. We see a reduction in violent crime. We see an increase in media attention on particular crimes. Even though we have a lot more violence shown to kids in movies and TV shows and video games, it doesn't seem to correlate with an increase in violence or murder. So it's hard to know. And like I said, there are individuals who probably are susceptible, that they've been abused or they have psychopathic traits, and they become obsessed with these images, and it is sort of the last straw that pushes them into a direction where they actually start to act on it. So I'm not saying that these images are universally wonderful. The other thing is that it's not, so just looking at kids and what they view and what they play, and looking at them becoming killers themselves, I mean, that's one way of looking at it. But there's other issues too, like the issue that the child is not being very connected to other people. Right. And the fact that they might actually become kind of depressed over time, or anxious, or lonely, or socially awkward. Now, that's a real thing, but that doesn't have anything to do with violent video games. It just has to do with the way our society is set up now, where, take a 13-year-old kid, 15-year-old kid who has video games. He's had video games his whole life. He loves video games. He knows how to play video games. There's never an awkward moment when he plays his video games in his room, on his Xbox, with his own TV, with his headphones on. Then he goes out, he's like at school, and he's like thinking, oh man, I want to ask that girl out on a date. And so he asks her on a date, and it's weird and awkward the way it was for every young person in history. You go out on a date, and it goes badly, and it's horrific and humiliating. She breaks up with you. She laughs in your face or something. And you go back to your room, and you go to your video game thing, and you're like, oh, my video games and my Xbox and my TV, and it's a safe place, and I have entertainment here, and I can depend on this. And that's a different situation than when we were young and we had those experiences. We'd run home, and there was nothing to do in our bedroom except maybe listen to music. And we had to call someone on the phone. We had to go to our parents. We had to actually speak to somebody, either over the phone or in person. And through that support asking and support giving, it helped us to better our self-esteem, to feel more connected to the world, to be encouraged to try it again. And so if there's a negative effect of the lifestyles, but it doesn't have anything to do with video games. It has to do with, well, it has something to do with video games, obviously, but it has more to do with just the way that we parent kids and the kind of incentives that they have in life and that kind of thing.
As children get older and their minds start to form, and they're starting to be kind of different or being labeled as different in society, and they start to pull away, become more introverted, is this where the mind starts to get darker, where they start to look for revenge on people? Well, to be clear, it's not introversion that causes the problem. It's asociality. So it's people who retract from others. Introverts are people who like to connect with other people in small environments. So they're still social people, but they just don't like big crowds, but they definitely like their 2 or 3 friends. But asocial or asociality, people who just pull away from society. Yeah, absolutely. It's a massive problem. And I treated a lot of families going through that. And like I described, it's a vicious cycle, because the more you pull away, the less self-esteem you have, the more awkward you become, the more your peers, sort of grow up socially and have self-esteem in that area. And you just feel awful. And it just becomes a self-perpetuating cycle. And, the other thing, Dave, is that on the internet, there are communities like the incels or the MGTOW people who will, welcome you into their group, which is nice to have a group of friends. But what they start doing is they start feeding a bunch of propaganda about the world is against them. And very rarely, but some of those individuals turn to violence. When you look at serial killers like Ted Bundy or Charles Manson what are some of the traits that are different from, say, everyday people who are functioning? Maybe they have a mortgage, they have a family, they have children or pets. What's the biggest difference?
Again, hard to know because I never met them. And from the psychohistories that I've read, there's only so much you can sort of glean from it. But the general thing I'll say is that, in my opinion, the focus is on their disorganized attachment, meaning that they grew up in a situation in which they felt detached from other people, either through abuse or just, parenting gone wrong, this kind of thing. And they didn't feel like they could really depend on other people. And they probably also deeply hated themselves in some fundamental level. And when we are faced with that kind of conclusion as a young person, we have a lot of different coping styles available to us, one of which involves believing that you are awesome, believing that you just sort of make up the story when you're quite young, like 3-4 years old, that you're this golden god and everyone else in the world is worthless. And this is, particularly with Ted Bundy, I think this was true. And I think Charlie Manson actually, I think both of them had this. Anyway, the point is that you develop this coping style that you believe that you're really good, but deep down you know that you're not. You're actually like the opposite of good, like just the worst of the worst. You're nothing. But if you uphold this surface level, I'm awesome, then you sort of distract yourself, and you need to constantly feed that ego of I'm the best. And so you start to try to prove it by manipulating other people, getting other people to do things. But deep down, you're really sad, you're really lonely, and you're really angry. You're extremely angry, and it's this primal anger that goes back to when you were very young. And for Ted Bundy, it seemed that in the beginning, he wanted to connect with women. He wanted to connect. He wanted to have a wife, a stable relationship. But because of his difficulties, because it was hard for him to connect with other people, it's hard for him to trust other people, things didn't go well. And really, when you're young, he was probably early 20s when he was in one significant relationship. She dumped him, and it was devastating to him. And he talks about this in his documentary, the Ted Bundy tapes, which I recommend people listen to if they want to know more about this. He talks about how for months, he was just thrown into this state where he just didn't know who he was, and he doesn't even really remember it. He was in a lot of distress. Well, during that time, there's no way to soothe the self. These sorts of people were mistreated in such a way that they have no way of just reassuring themselves that things are going to be okay, and their distress is like so severe. And I mean, the analogy or the sort of thing I like to point out is if you've ever had a young child or you've been around a young child when they're having a meltdown, say they're 18 months, 2 years old, and they're tired, they're hungry, they're uncomfortable or something, and they just lose it, right? They just, they're screaming, they're on the ground, and they're in distress. They're not making it up. They're cranky, and they don't know what to do, and they just, their whole self just sort of melts down. Well, for those people at that age, it's normal, right? Those people can't soothe themselves, and so they need us as parents to go to them and hold them or ask them what they want or something, or, and say, everything's going to be okay, or, do what we can to soothe them. Well, for people like Ted Bundy, they were treated in such a way that they have a certain arrested development from that time where when something goes bad in their life and they have distress, inside of them, they go to that place and it's just unbridled suffering for them. And the thing that perhaps brought him out of that was this notion of revenge. And although he never really admitted to this, so it's just me speculating quite a bit, I think that his brain locked in on, okay, I'm suffering. I have no way out, but at least I can get back at these women. or I could get back at this woman who dumped me. And so what he would do is he would find women that looked or resembled or reminded him of her, and he would do terrible things to them. And that would, scratch an itch. So again, speculation, but that's my conceptualization of Ted Bundy in a nutshell. I did a few hours on him, so it's kind of hard to, in my podcast, it's kind of hard to summarize really quickly, but I don't know. Does that make sense to you, Dave?
Absolutely. We got about 7 minutes here before we get to the top of the hour and the break. My question to you is, where does the sexual sadism come in? Because for somebody like Ted Bundy, he loved the power. He loved to be able to be in control, full control of the entire situation, whether it was sexually or whether it was killing. How much does sexual hatred come into play?
It's really hard to tell, and if Ted Bundy were still alive and I had access to him, and he was honest with me, I'd try to, and if I was trying to answer this question, I would really need to answer a lot of questions. I need to ask him a lot of questions. Basically, for some people, sexual, rape and sexual assaultive behavior can be motivated by just pure power. For some people, they just want to make other people suffer, and they just want to be in power over other people. And they could do it by beating them, or they could do it by stealing from them, or they could do it by assaulting them sexually. So for some people, that's the motivation. For other people, they actually have a condition, or they developed a condition in which they actually get turned on by raping other people. This is the, sexual sadistic personality. And for these people, it's in the same way that the vast majority of other people get turned on by typical things, shall we say, these people get turned on by images and thoughts and actions of actual rape, which is, quite an unfortunate development in their personality for all of us.
How much does pornography play a role in this?
Well, similar to video games, pornography because most people look at pornography, the vast majority of people, pornography doesn't seem to have any negative effects. For some individuals, it seems like who have a lot of other factors that are playing into their sexual issues, pornography can play a role for sure. And similar to video games, that doesn't mean that pornography doesn't have issues, because there are lots of other issues. Like pornography can, if it's done in a very stereotypical way, it can warp the minds of young people to think that that's what sex is always supposed to look like. And there's a lot of issues like that. But in general, porn seems to be fairly safe in the same way that video games are.
Because I thought I had read in Ted Bundy's stories, and there's hundreds and thousands of stories about him, that he loved watching porn, and it was part of his aggression. It was part of what fueled him.
Yeah. So again, it's hard to know because he often lied to journalists, but later on in his stay on death row, he started to talk about that. And one could say he was just trying to blame something that was popular in the 80s to blame. But if we're to believe him, yeah, he was saying it was all the porn. But if we're to include it in the conceptualization I have of him, he could have early in his life had the seeds of what would develop later into this aggression and revenge against women that was related to his mom. And seeing pornography as a younger person could have, planted the seeds in some kind of mixture or some kind of complex in his psychology that could have led, to it. I suspect if he never saw any porn, that he would have had issues anyway. It's just a guess. So might it have been one of the factors? Yeah, I could see that.
Dr. Kirk Honda is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Excuse me. As we are talking about serial killers and the psychology behind them, Dr. Honda, in regards to Ted Bundy and the way he lied and manipulated his way, how much does compulsive lying then come into play? Or is it a matter of building up multiple personalities via the stories that you create?
Well, from the conceptualization consensus, he didn't suffer from what we might call multiple personalities or dissociative identity, but the pathological lying was absolutely a part of it. So when you're a psychopath like Ted Bundy, you don't really care about other people's feelings. And when other people are hurt or, physically hurt or dead because of you, you don't care. But at a smaller level, you don't even care about disappointing other people. You don't care about other people losing trust in you because you just don't really care. And so when you're growing up, and so you and I'm going to assume, Dave, you're not a psychopath. You don't seem like one to me, but I don't know.
Oh, good.
Thank
you.
Yeah. And so you and I, when we were growing up and we lied to someone because, we were trying to get away with something, and our parents or our friends or someone looked at us with disappointment, and they looked at us, they were angry, they were hurt, they were disappointed. You and I were devastated. You and I would go like, we'd feel ashamed of ourselves because we felt the pain of the other person. We could mentalize the other person's pain. They tell us they're in pain, and we feel it also. We have these mirror neurons where we feel other people's pain. And so in our brains, we're like, okay, lying to people equals pain, not only for other people, but for me too, because I feel other people's pain. And therefore, I'm not going to lie again because that was awful. To the psychopath, they don't have that mechanism. And so it doesn't, there's none of that experiential learning that teaches them that lying is bad. So they just don't have any problem with it. And it just becomes habitual to them because they're always trying to get what they want.
Is that the drive? Is that what their focus is getting what they want? We got about 30 seconds.
So I have an interesting point of view on this. I actually believe that they have the same wants that we do, but it gets completely jumbled up. I think that they actually want attachment with other people, but they have, as that need filters through their personality, it becomes completely dysfunctional by the time it actually manifests.
And on that note, Dr. Kirk Honda, we're going to hop out here and take a break at the top of the hour. We have Dr. Kirk Honda for one more hour here on Spaced Out Radio. I know there's a few questions being built up in our chat rooms tonight. We will get to them. Make sure you retype them in capital letters at the top so that way I don't miss them. Dr. Kirk Honda talking psychology of serial killers on Spaced Out Radio. Hour number 2 is next.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Come hang out with Spaced Out Radio, where we own the night. This is Carl. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and during the show, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to chat with us live. On Instagram, at Dave Scott SOR. On Facebook, give our page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. SOR archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. Come join us, or I will come join you. See you at your window.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Canada's largest UFO conference is ready to roll in Toronto this September 21st and 22nd at the Alien Cosmic Expo. This year is about the experience. Listen to the stories of Dave Scott, Travis Walton, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Ryan Stacey, Richard Dolan, Leslie Mitchell-Clark, and more. Get your tickets now at aliencosmicexpo.com. Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Hey fans, it's Dave Scott. Do I have something for you to check out? A great documentary about legendary Mexican investigative journalist Jaime Maussan and his search for the truth about UFOs. Beyond the Spectrum, Maussan's UFO files can be found on Amazon Prime. It's free to watch if you're a member. You might even hear me in it. So check out Beyond the Spectrum, only on Amazon Prime. The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacey, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you, as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates. KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon. Down in Ridgecrest, California, KZFX 93.7 FM. KDNF AM 1560 in Dangerfield, Texas. UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And down in Noonan, Georgia, WQEE 99.1 FM. We're also on digitally on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. Great to have you with us. Don't forget, you can check out all of our archives for free. All you got to do is go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Semioviparous. Semioviparous is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where you can read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. You can also listen to the show live. The Gavinator will have new features coming very, very soon. Tonight we are talking about the psychology of serial killers. Our guest tonight is Dr. Kirk Honda. He is out of Seattle, Washington, has a great podcast that you might want to check out called the Psychology in Seattle podcast. It can be found on iTunes and a number of other places. Kirk, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. Thank you so much.
Glad to be here.
Now, right before the break, we were talking about the mind, like with somebody like Ted Bundy, who murdered dozens of women. And this was a gentleman who really changed his identity, changed his look, a very, very, very sadistic sociopath. I think that's a fair comment to make on him. When you look at somebody like him, the way he almost had a hunger to kill women, how does one get that hunger? How does that work in the mind? Have you ever been able to figure that out, or is there any studies that have been able to talk to some of these serial killers that maybe haven't been executed, or while they're alive, talk to them about it, on how they just have no feeling or regard for humanity and human life to do what they are doing?
Yeah, it's a excellent question. One that is, I think, central to our interest in such figures. The other question that I'll have, so I'll answer your question with a question, which is typical therapist sort of thing. What sort of shoes are you wearing right now, or footwear?
I'm barefoot right now.
Okay. Why are you barefoot right now? What about your psychology made you, barefoot right now?
I feel more comfortable without shoes and socks on.
Okay. So, good. Why do you feel more comfortable without shoes or socks on?
That's a good question.
It's hard to know, right? It's like, well, I don't know. I just like it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of things like that. Why do some people like Star Wars and some people hate it? Why do some people become accountants and some people become broadcasters? We can look at factors like, well, I don't know, I was sort of influenced here, but we really just don't know. We don't know the answer to that question because there's no way to answer it. We can answer scientific questions like, how much does the moon weigh? How long is a day? How far are we to the sun? There are ways of measuring those things. You have a scientific question, we can answer them. When we have a question, why does Ted Bundy have the urge to kill the way that he did? We could expand that to all human behaviors. Why do some people wear, fashionable clothes and some people just don't seem to care? We have explanations for it. It's not like you had an explanation. It's like, well, I don't know. It just feels better when I'm not wearing shoes. Well, we have to go by that. So you go to a serial killer. It's like, why do you do this? And they'll be like, it just feels good. I like to do it. So that's about as far as we can go in terms of hard science. But when it comes to softer sciences, psychology being in large part a softer science, then we can start making some conceptualizations of it. We can start thinking about, well, what are the commonalities among these people, and what is the precipitance? What's the full picture of the motivation? And like I said, for Ted Bundy, and I think it's different for different serial killers. And like Jeffrey Dahmer, for example, he was a different sort of killer than Ted Bundy. And like Jeffrey Dahmer, I think, I did a deep dive on him on my podcast as well. But I think he was more motivated by just really wanting to be close to somebody. When he would kill people, he would cut up their bodies and he would stay with them. He would hold them. The stories you hear about are he would have body parts in the fridge. But when they would interview him, and he would talk about how it was his way of trying to hold on to these people because he didn't feel worthy enough to actually have a relationship with somebody. Match that up with psychopathy in that he doesn't really care about humans the way that other people do. That's a different kind of a path of wanting to hold. Ted Bundy, I think, also had a need to be close to people, but was also extremely angry. The man was angry to the point of obsession and self-destruction. He escaped twice, right? One in particular time, he made it all the way across the United States down to Florida and then proceeded to self-destruct one night by walking into a sorority or a college dorm with a bunch of young women and assaulted many of them and killed some of them. And that was very different than the things he used to do before, where he would actually kind of methodically lure people and get away with it. And this one, it was very sloppy, and he got caught pretty quickly. So, we can conceptualize it as a anger issue that's wrapped up in this notion. When you and I get angry at somebody, we have a lot of ways of expressing it that are functional. We can, I don't know, what do you, like, say you're at work or, you're at the store and someone bothers you and you come home. What do you do with your anger, Dave?
Usually, I will give myself a timeout. I used to be very loud and verbal. And I remember one time when my daughter was probably about 5 years old, the loudness of my voice scared her. And seeing that fear in her eyes, that's where I made a commitment to myself that, yeah, I'm not going to be like my dad in regards to, having that loud voice. And I would just usually just kind of button up and go give myself a timeout, so to speak, in my own room, give myself, whether it was 10 minutes or whether it was 3 hours, to calm myself down, because I didn't want to be that way in front of my kids.
Okay, good for you. What if it was something that kind of stayed on your mind, that stuck with you for a few days? So, you get over the initial blast of fight or flight response. What do you do after that with your anger?
I would say I'm pretty much like the rest of society, and I suppress it.
Okay. I mean, do you ever talk about it? Do you ever say something to someone like, I'm pissed off? Yeah, right. So you suppress it. You might talk about, so I heard four things. One is, when you get angry, you might just start screaming, right? You're at home and you're just like, oh my God, I can't stand what's happening right now. Okay. So although that's, great that you can identify that as not healthy and you don't want to do that anymore, that's healthier than what Ted Bundy did, right? What
Yes.
Ted Bundy did was he felt like he couldn't even really do that. So the anger builds in someone, the hurt, the deep sense, and the level of anger is so much higher. So he's deeply hurt. He feels deeply worthless. He has years and years of anger built up, and he doesn't have the procedures that other people have, where you can scream about it, or you can take a time out, or you can suppress it even, or you can talk about it with someone else, because he didn't trust other people. Plus, he was so narcissistic that he didn't want to come across as weak to other people. And so he did his best to appear to everyone else like everything was fine. It was his way of trying to retain the veil that everything was okay, which made him feel okay. If he gave this impression that everything was okay, he too felt okay. And so all this roiling, just anger and revenge had nowhere else to go. And for him, it resulted in what he did. For the vast majority of other people in that situation, they drink a lot, or they smoke pot a lot, or some other kind of vice is usually what they turn to.
So for him, or any other serial killer in that regard, we in the media, like if you're watching a documentary, you always hear this infamous saying called bloodlust. Did it have anything to do with bloodlust?
Hard to know. That's not my conceptualization. I mean, it's hard to know what people exactly mean by that. Like, they get addicted to blood or something. That's not my conceptualization of these people. Certainly it can become a compulsion in the same way that you have an itch on your leg and you have to itch it, or you need a cigarette every once in a while and the motivation builds in you, or yet you want to have sex, or you want food, or whatever sort of motivation that sort of builds over time. Ted Bundy seemed to actually have that. A lot of serial killers seem to have that. So we can conceptualize it compulsively. But in terms of bloodlust, like, the cougar gets the taste for blood and it's a man killer, I think that's from movies.
And Hollywood does have a good way of trying to build the drama. So that's what you chalk it up to.
Yeah, I think so. And plus, as I don't know if you can relate to this, but the way I see Ted Bundy and other serial killers is particular. And other people share my point of view, but it's not the majority in society for sure. It involves seeing these people as suffering human beings, and which I deeply believe, and there's a lot of evidence for that. And what some people sort of mistake that for is sympathy for them and their behavior or something. I have no sympathy for Ted Bundy. Lots of people have issues, and he decided to hurt other people. That is awful. He's responsible for that. He's an awful human being. But he also was suffering greatly. And that's just not a very interesting story to society. We like vampires and Darth Vader. Well, I guess Darth Vader eventually became someone who was suffering, but we like vampires, evil creatures, the creature from the Black Lagoon. Well, it wasn't a creature from, I'm using a lot of bad metaphors right now, but we like our
That's
evil
quite
characters.
Okay.
And I think for serial killers, they can be that sort of character to us in our society.
I got a few questions from our audience here, if you don't mind, in the chat rooms I'd like to read to you.
Sure.
Quest is asking, somebody like Richard Ramirez, do you believe, even from a scientific view, that he could have been demonically possessed?
I don't know who Richard Ramirez was, but
the Night Stalker.
My conceptualization of people was Richard Ramirez a serial killer?
Yes.
Yeah.
In California.
So, yeah. Well, I personally don't conceptualize people in such a way, but other people are free to do that. But I find that there are perfectly within the field of psychology, there's a lot of explanations for why people do this that don't include such conceptualizations. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Sharon is wondering, hi Sharon from Arkansas. I'm Dave from BC. She is wondering, why are there more men than female serial killers?
That's a very good question. So it's hard to know, like I said, but my conceptualization, which is shared by some others, is that men are socialized to be more aggressive. When we're young, when we're even as young as 6 months old, little boys are treated differently than little girls. When a boy is, for example, they've studied this, when a boy is more violent, more aggressive, even at the age of 6, 9, 12 months, parents are much more lenient. When a little girl is aggressive, the parents are much more likely to stop the young girl from doing that. So boys are socialized to be that way. 2, boys are socialized to not ask for help and to not ask for love in general. Boys are socialized to be tough and to be independent and to be successful, and girls are at least somewhat more allowed to do that kind of thing. So you have a bunch of boys who have a lot of issues and suffering, and they have no way of asking for that. And that can create a lot of issues where you turn to aggression to solve your problems. And we see that in society for sure, and that absolutely, in my opinion, can be a factor in why you see more men as serial killers. The other thing is probably biology plays a role. It's hard to know, given that we socialize our kids in different ways, and society socializes us as we grow up in different ways. But it seems that biology might play a role. Testosterone plays a role in aggression and those kinds of things. So there's probably other factors that I'm not remembering. But yeah. And also, women are socialized to believe that when there's something wrong with them in general. And so women tend to internalize their pain and blame themselves, whereas men tend to blame other people. So that's maybe another factor. Sexuality can be sometimes different between men and women and can produce the sorts of things that rape. Having said that, there are women serial killers and there are women rapists for sure. So it's a percentage thing.
Interesting. I never would have thought about that. So was somebody, and I'm not sure if you recognize the name of Eileen Wuornos, who was the first, I believe, female serial killer in the modern era to be executed. I believe she killed like 7 or 10 men, something along those lines. How much does anger have to play in this? Like when we talked earlier about getting angry about me or any of us, when we get angry, we learn how to control that anger to the best of our abilities. And yet this rage that many of these serial killers take out on the bodies, whether it is dissecting them, cutting them up, eating them like Dahmer did, or, cutting off certain body parts like Eileen Wuornos did. Does that type of rage come from within, or do they not know how to control that anger that they are feeling at that time?
I think that that's a sound conceptualization, that for most people, when they're angry, and again, the anger comes from somewhere. So we're typically angry because people have rejected us or hurt us in some way, emotionally usually. And so that's where it begins. And then we get angry about it because we want to tell other people to stop it. That's the impulse of anger. It's a way of asserting our needs, a way of communicating to other people that they've hurt us. Now, if you have been mistreated or there's been some issue that's led to some different sort of developmental factors in your personality, you don't believe the way that you and I believe that if we communicate our anger, people will respond well. When I'm angry, I talk to my wife and I'm just like, I'm angry about this thing that happened and it bothers me. And I know that she'll respond well. Or if I'm angry at her, if she hurts my feelings, I know I can tell her that she hurt my feelings or that I'm angry at her. And in general, I trust that she'll respond well to that. For some people, given the way that they're raised, they absolutely do not believe that to their core. Even if you prove it to them that you're there, they actually are so distrustful of other people in general that they gave up a long time ago on people. Now, I'm painting a wide swath to every serial killer, by the way, which is impossible. Like you actually brought up Jeffrey Dahmer. I actually believe that anger was not his primary reason. Like I said, I think it was this psychopathy matched up with this deep desire to be close to somebody, but he seemingly had no self-esteem to believe that anyone would actually like him for who he was. And I think that it became this very weird, it's sort of like if you want to be close to your idol in hockey, for example, you might, if you were at a hockey match and they gave you their stick, you would hold on to that and you would bring it home and you'd say,
yes,
I have
it's a trophy.
But every time you look at it, every time you held it, you would feel the energy of that person.
Right. Dr. Honda, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We're going to step out on Spaced Out Radio. Dr. Kirk Honda is with us another 30 minutes talking about serial killers. We'll be back with more after this on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, Spaced Out Radio listeners, it's Dave Scott. I want you to check out a great documentary I'm involved in called Beyond the Spectrum, Mosson's UFO Files. Directed by Darcy Weir, the film follows Jaime Mosson's journey for mainstream journalistic truth in ufology in Mexico. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon Prime. If you're a member, watch it free. It's worth the watch.
Coming up this September 21st and 22nd, all UFO eyes will be focused on Toronto for the 4th Annual Alien Cosmic Expo. Come listen to some of the biggest names and experiencers in ufology. Travis Walton, Paul Hellyer, Richard Dolan, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Randy Kramer, and Spaced Out Radio's own Dave Scott. Tickets are on sale now at aliencosmicexpo.com.
Did you know Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm here to take you on a paranormal journey each Saturday and Sunday night. Why change the station when you have it all right here? Together, we'll hang out and share some strange and scary stories. And don't forget, we have Psychic Sundays as well, so come tune in Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com, where we own the night.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESSA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, hanging out with all of you from SOR headquarters in the frozen Canadian tundra. Thank you so much for joining us. Reminder, if you've missed most of this show or others, you can always go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Captain Shirk has all the news updated at spacedoutradio.com for the SOR Newswire. You can also listen to the show live there. The Gavinator will have more features for you very, very soon. You know, we got to give a little shout out to the Gavinator tonight. He was planning on getting a bunch of work done on the site today, but unfortunately, his day got bad. He had to put his puppy down of 16 years. 16 years with a dog, and he had to put it down. And so he wasn't feeling too up to it, so we gave him a day off today, obviously. So thoughts and prayers with Gavinator and his family tonight. Also, we want to give a shout-out to Gene in D.C. Hi, Gene. Do us a favor. Give us a call sometime. Thank you so much for listening in. Dr. Kirk Honda is our guest tonight out of Seattle, Washington. He is a psychologist. We're looking into the psychology of serial killers. He has a podcast called the Psychology in Seattle podcast, which you can find on iTunes as well as other locations. Dr. Honda, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. I'm really sorry to hear about your colleague's dog. That is truly awful.
Yeah, it's terrible. Absolutely terrible. Yeah, he was kind of down. I talked to him about an hour before the show, and he was like, yeah, man. I said, how'd the website go today? Are we having any pages up today like you promised? He's like, yeah, about that. He goes, I had to put my dog down today. I'm like, oh, well, that's not good. So we talked for like about half an hour, just let him spill it out a little bit. But 16 years, that's, you know what sucks about dogs? And I'm a huge dog lover. I got 3 dogs. We're just not blessed with enough time with them.
I know. It truly is. Cats as well. A lot of pets. They live so short. And, I've lost a number of pets in my life that, were very, very dear to me. And now whenever I get a new animal in my life, I think, well, start the clock, because eventually, if things go according to normalcy, I'm going to lose this animal, and not too long from now, and that's going to be devastating.
I know. It's just amazing that you can find an animal like a dog, and even some cats. That we give cats a hard time for being cranky all the time, but especially dogs. Like, I haven't had a dog ever last more than 10 years or 9 years, just over 9 years. I've never had that 10-year dog. And I look at my 3 dogs, and one is 9, one is 8, and the other one we think is 7 or 8. And I just think, damn, like what's going to be happening here in the next year to 2 years? Like, this sucks. Now you start thinking about it, and dogs are just way too kind. For the most part, they're just way too kind. And we deserve to have them a little bit longer than what we do. It's not fair. Not fair at all. But that's for an entirely different conversation, my friend. That one's just going to upset me and piss me off. But back to serial killers. Let's get to it. And I should let our audience know that you know, originally we were only going to have you until the top of the hour, but you're going to go till 11:30 because you're having fun and the audience is really enjoying you as well. So thank you for extending your time with us. Now, in regards to, you know, right before we talked about female serial killers and the anger and, you know, is there anger differences between the two? When you look at somebody like Charles Manson, who was, I would say, a master manipulator in regards to using religious doctrine in order to build his conclave, if we want to call it that. How does that type of psychology work where somebody is literally able to control the minds of other people?
Yeah, he's an interesting case, and the followers are also interesting, the Manson family, as they call themselves. He was similar to someone like Ted Bundy, but had a different style of coping with the emptiness inside, which was to control other people, to get them to believe he was some sort of guru. For many years before he killed anybody, he fashioned him. He wanted to be a musician. He wanted to be like he loved the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. He wanted to be famous. He wanted to be a rock star. He wanted that accolade of screaming women and the power and the money. And, you know, a lot of people want that. He, on the other hand, had nothing to fall back on. I wanted to be a rock star when I was a kid. I loved the Beatles. I loved, you know, The Cure and other kinds of bands. And when I was 18, I wanted to be a rock star. And when I realized that was never going to happen pretty quickly in my adult life, I had other things to fall back on, and I had self-esteem I could fall back on. I'd be like, well, even though I'm not a rock star, I still think I'm a worthy human being on this planet. I'm sure I'll figure something out. For people like Charles Manson, they don't have that sense of self that they can fall back on, and so they keep going towards building something. So when it didn't work out, it almost worked out with him on a rock star. He got the Beach Boys to record his music and all that kind of stuff. But that wasn't going very far, and he needed to turn to something else. So that's when he actually turned to building a commune thing where he was going to be the leader of a little cult group. And when that sort of started to become not so interesting to him, then he wanted to change the world. He wanted to start the revolution. And that's what led to the killing.
So with somebody like Charles Manson, was it years and years of brainwashing people to his indoctrination? Or was it the fact that he was looking for certain types of people who were maybe destitute and had no passion or desire to live until they found him and his kind words?
I don't think he was smart enough or had the resources to make such a plan. He, from the stories that I've heard about, you know, what built up to the family, it was pretty haphazard. He was a charismatic fellow. He had these piercing eyes, and he loved to play his guitar and sing his songs. And at the time, a lot of people were, the hippie movement was on, and people were hitchhiking to California, and people were looking for groups of people to hang out with. Again, no video games, not much on TV. And there were a lot of kids, a lot of young adults just hanging out on the beach and at the park. And there was this notion in the culture at the time around gurus, around teachers who would bring people together, Timothy Leary and Buddhist gurus Buddhist leaders and other kinds of thinkers who would, build a group around them. And it was seen as a good thing. Today, we kind of look back at it as a little dubious, but at the time it was something that a lot of people were looking for, kind of. And from what I understand from the story, and I could be wrong because I'm not a super expert on Charles Manson, but he because of his narcissism, he just started to talk like he was a leader, and he started to gather people around him. And that made him feel good. That filled the void temporarily for him that he so desperately needed to fill.
Mm-hmm. Yet he didn't do any of the killing himself. He was able to manipulate these people to enact his own rage and his own manifesto. It was almost like building an army.
Yeah. So the story leading up to the actual killings is interesting because, and again, I'm sure there are people listening right now who are actually much more expert on this than I am, but from my memory, there was drug dealing involved, and there was a drug deal that went wrong, and they kidnapped some guy involved in drugs, and it was a weird, meandering path to what he eventually landed on, which was he wanted to start the revolution in the United States, the uprising of black people. And although when we look back, it seems like this really silly thing, right? It's like, what? But if you lived in the time, there was a very real, worry or potentiality of a rebellion among young people because, the riots and the protests, and there was domestic terrorism that was pretty rampant in the late 60s and early 70s. And there was a real threat. And so he thought, and it wasn't completely irrational, that if he started the ball rolling, that the revolution would happen and he would be hailed as like the king of the revolution. Again, more of that narcissism. So I don't think he actually set out to like, okay, I'm going to build an army and I want to kill people. I think he just wanted to be great. And he was a psychopath who was quite disturbed and wasn't afraid or wouldn't shy away from killing people in the process. But the interesting question is, what if he actually did become famous as a musician? Because a lot of people think that if he did, he never would have done any of those things because he would have been fulfilled. What if Hitler had become a famous painter? There's these questions of, what if?
So with a person like Manson, the way he was able to control, how do you convince people that starting a revolution or starting a revolution with a violent act such as that and then blaming it on a different race, I mean, that just screams psychopathic behavior. And yet these people were so indoctrinated that they followed. And I guess I'm having trouble trying to figure out why anybody would do that. Because if I'm hanging out with somebody and they seem really cool, and let's face it, there's alpha people and there's beta people. And if they are that alpha to try and control me, to say, hey, I want you to go rob that person, or I want you to kill this person, I'm just looking at them and saying, I'm out. I'm out.
Right. Yeah. So that's another interesting question that I think all of us have when we see cases like this. We look at a case like Charlie Manson, like, okay, sure, there are some bad apples, but what about all those other people? How did he convince those other people? And the process is well documented and happens in a lot of contexts. We don't have a lot of data on serial killers, but we have a lot of data on high influence and highly restrictive controlling relationships and what it does to the psychology. So lots of spouses who are in abusive relationships, for example, will exhibit psychology or beliefs, attitudes, behaviors related to this, where, Stockholm syndrome is what we call it, right? When you are in a high control situation and you feel like you can't really get out, and the dominant charismatic leader breaks you down over time, it's just easier to hand your mind over to them because you'll be safe. You say you're a young woman and you have some self-esteem issues, but you're doing okay. And you meet a fella and you fall in love and things are going okay. And then you get married, you start having kids. And yeah, sure, he has some anger issues sometimes, but you can forgive that. But over time, he starts drinking, gets more angry. He lashes out more when you don't please him in some way. He can sometimes really lose it and beat you, badly with bruises and blood and stuff. And you say to yourself, okay, I need to get out of this. This is bad. I need this to stop. But he is capable of, I'm worried he's going to kill someone with his anger. So if I even suggest a divorce, is he going to kill my kids? Is he going to kill me? He lies sometimes. Is he going to lie about me? Is he going to stalk me the rest of my life? And so you just repeat that dilemma for days, weeks, months, years. And eventually, when you feel trapped, you think, well, I do have a way out of this, which is I can just believe what the dominant person believes. I can just hand my psychology over to them. This is all unconscious, by the way. And everything will be okay, because if I hand it over to them, then they will treat me better and I'll be safer. Things will be okay. If I just sort of let go of myself and I let go of my own needs and I just suppress all those things, then my life will actually go better. To let go of the self means I'm safer. So with the Charlie Manson family, again, some of your listeners might be super experts on this and much more knowledgeable about it. But from my memory, he started slow. He would, actually, there's this one example that I think typifies it. So in the Beach Boys, there were a number of brothers, the Wilson brothers, right? And yes. He became friends with the drummer. And the drummer was susceptible to Charlie Manson's charisma and to his control. But, not one of the brothers, but the cousin, the guy who always wears the hat. He went to a party where Charlie Manson was, and the drummer of the Beach Boys was like, oh, you got to meet this guy. He's great. He's a songwriter. He's really interesting. And this other guy in the Beach Boys meets Charlie Manson, and he's just like, oh, great. Nice to meet you. And Charlie Manson did something to him, something aggressive, something mildly bullyish. And this other Beach Boy was like, whoa, what was that? And said, I don't like this guy. I'm not hanging out with this guy. And he ran. So what Charlie Manson probably learned at some point was when he meets someone, he has to test them to see where their self-esteem is. And by being aggressive, being hostile, or being controlling in some way. And those people who run away, well, he's never going to be able to control them. And so he that's good that they're running away from him. But the people who stay, he knows they have the sort of personality that can be broken down. When they come to him, they're, like I said, they just have a slight self-esteem problem, or a slight issue. But over time, he would start with, I need you to, this is just an example of cult charisma. This isn't necessarily Charlie Manson, but they would say, I want you to stop talking to your parents because your parents are a bad influence on you. Okay. If you're not particularly close to your parents, it's not a big deal. I could do without talking to my parents for a couple months. Okay. Okay. Now you're going to dress a different way. Okay. Not a big deal. I can dress a certain way. Okay. Now you're going to eat a certain way. Okay. I guess so. Okay. Now you're going to get this tattoo. Okay. Now you're going to kill people. It's a very slow progression. I took a leap to the kill people, but I hope you get my point, that there's a slow breakdown of the individual's self where the high control person just takes over.
Wouldn't that kind of be like the military with their drill sergeants and basic training?
Yeah, I mean, that's akin to it. Of course, one would argue they don't take it as far, but when you're very concentrating on your own needs and you're very concentrating on the self, it doesn't make you an effective soldier on the battlefield.
True. True that. We got about a minute 40 here before we got to go to break here at the top of the hour. And I'm going to get to Renee's question here. We can carry this one over after the break if you feel a need. And she is asking, what perplexes her is how women and some men tend to write and fall in love with these creeps. Dr. Honda, do you have a possible explanation for this?
So when some people are raised, they are made to feel like they are not worth anything. And one way of coping with that is to believe that you are in fact worthless and that other people are good and that your road to safety and security is through other people. And when taken to an extreme or in a particular way, you can look for, if you're a young woman and you feel worthless on the inside, you can look for a strong male to lead you and protect you and keep you safe. But you need them to be very strong. You need them not to be wishy-washy, so to speak, or to ask you what you want. You need them to be definitive. Well, another word for, very strong and definitive and independent is abusive. Someone who doesn't care about your feelings, someone who does whatever they want and doesn't really ask you what you want. And so in the beginning, they're falling in love with strength and security, but it's in the end abusive.
That's a good time right there. Right there. You timed it out perfectly. Dr. Kirk Honda is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. He is going to stick around for another 30 minutes. We're going to get our questions in. We're going to talk a little bit more about Jeffrey Dahmer because that is a completely different case whatsoever in the psychology of serial killers. We'll be back with more of Dr. Kirk Honda in Hour 3, the SOR Newswire, and the Thought of the Dave as well. Stay tuned.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Hang out with Spaced Out Radio where we own the night. This is Carl. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and during the show, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to chat with us live. On Instagram, at Dave Scott SOR. On Facebook, give our page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. SOR archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. Come join us, or I will come join you. See you at your window.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Canada's largest UFO conference is ready to roll in Toronto this September 21st and 22nd at the Alien Cosmic Expo. This year is about the experience. Listen to the stories of Dave Scott, Travis Walton, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Ryan Stacey, Richard Dolan, Leslie Mitchell-Clark, and more. Get your tickets now at aliencosmicexpo.com.
Hey fans, it's Dave Scott. Do I have something for you to check out? A great documentary about legendary Mexican investigative journalist Jaime Maussan and his search for the truth about UFOs. Beyond the Spectrum, Maussan's UFO files can be found on Amazon Prime. It's free to watch if you're a member. You might even hear me in it. So check out Beyond the Spectrum, only on Amazon Prime.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacey, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
From the mile-high mountains of Colorado to all of you around the world, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I invite you to stick around spacedoutradio.com for Saturday and Sunday nights where I host Spaced Out Weekend. Let me take you on a wild ride of weird and strange topics, from ghosts and ETs to remote viewing, psychic phenomena, and so much more. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time on Spaced Out Weekend, where we own the night.
On the first Tuesday of every month, I encourage you to come along for a journey with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You. Together, we will take a look at how to access the highest expression of yourself and change your life. Consciousness, ET contact, health, and wellness, we can talk about it all. So come along for a spiritual ride with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You, only on Spaced Out Radio.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you, as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
We're into the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have each and every one of you listening in, especially if you're listening in on our terrestrial affiliates, KDNF, AM 1560 in Dangerfield, Texas, UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans, down in Noonan, Georgia, WQEE 99.1 FM, KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon, and KZFX 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California. On the digital side, hi to everyone listening in on Revolution Radio and Kingdom of Nye Radio. Good to have you with us. Don't forget, you can check out all of our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Semiovaporous is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where you can read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, listen to the show live. The Gavinator has a bunch of new features coming very, very soon. Stay tuned. We're going to make it look real, real good. Tonight, for the final time, we introduce Dr. Kirk Honda. We are talking about the psychology of serial killers. And I know we have some questions in our audience chat rooms tonight, but Dr. Honda, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I want to get a follow-up question in from Renee. This leads to her question right before the break about, people who write into these serial killers and fall in love with them while they're in prison, almost like they are some sort of celebrity. Renee's follow-up question is, how can they possibly protect themselves in prison? Many women go gaga over these inmates.
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon. I think, again, I've never studied these people, but I would speculate there's a few motivations. One, I think, is just fame. I think some people, women and men, will do a lot to get fame and recognition. People will go on Jerry Springer and act like fools and that kind of thing for just a little bit of fame, a little bit of money. And if you marry Charlie Manson in prison, you know you're going to be famous. You also know you're never going to see him in the real world because you know that he's in prison for life. So I think some people are actually motivated by fame. The other possibility that I'll allow is that some people might legitimately like these people. They're often portrayed as these monsters, but for the most part, they're kind, regular people who, there's a pot for every lid, so to speak. And there are, elements of their personalities that are probably tolerable, if not appealing to some people. So I'll allow that some people actually legitimately just like them. I think there's got to be something different about someone's personality when they don't date in the real world very well and they turn to inmates who they know are going to be in prison for a long time and who know are infamous for horrible acts. So I imagine that for some of them, again, just all speculation, that they might also just not feel like they can actually get a partner in the real world, and they wonder if someone in prison would be just more appreciative of them, and therefore they would have a more secure relationship with that person. I also think some people are just fascinated with murderers. There's just something about our society that, we're talking about it right now, right? There's just something about our society where it's just really interesting to us. And I think that can be, say, a version of love and affection that could build into actually reaching out and having a relationship with someone in prison like this.
I can see that because, like, even with our audience here, our audience really can appreciate the true crime. It intrigues them. It makes their mind think. I think if you're listening to any type of alternative programming, whether it's about serial killers or true crime or aliens and UFOs or even politics for that matter, it's that alternative thinking of maybe the conspiracy behind it or the mind that just makes people wonder if this is, something they're missing out on society that we aren't discussing enough.
And another factor in addition to that is, this is, again, just the way I see the world, is all of us, when we were young, had anger and aggression. All of us, from the time we can swing a very weak fist at someone when we're 6 months old. And we learn through good parenting and society that we can't be aggressive and murderous towards other people, even though we might have those urges at times. And so we suppress, which is a good thing on some level, or we don't allow ourselves the pleasure or the satisfaction of punching our boss in the face or running someone over that bothers us. So we live in this tension of denying ourselves something, an impulse that we have. And it's good that we deny ourselves that impulse. But serial killers in our minds do not suppress that. And so when we have a lot of suppressed anger and a lot of suppressed aggression towards other people, it's satisfying through sublimation to pay attention and really absorb all the details of these people's lives, because we look at them and we say, well, at least, we sort of live vicariously through them. It's like, well, they're getting their aggression. It's the same with like mob movies. Why do we love mob movies like Sopranos or Goodfellas so much? It's because partially these people can live outside the law and can actually take those aggressive acts. And we get a satisfaction from seeing people actually do that because we live through them.
Interesting. So when it comes to somebody like Jeffrey Dahmer, where it's almost completely different than what other serial killers are dealing with in regards to their own mentality and their strength, where he was more killing out of, and I hate to use this word, compassion for his own needs. Do we look at the fact that there are different breakdowns of how somebody's mind works in regards to taking the lives of innocent others?
I think so. I think there's a lot of paths. Now, don't get me wrong. Jeffrey Dahmer absolutely was a psychopath, absolutely did not have empathy for other people in the way that most people would, absolutely had a fascination with killing people. He had fantasies of killing people in the same way that I'm sure Ted Bundy did. But what was different about him was that the way he went about his killings was, like I said earlier, in my conceptualization, an attempt to have a close relationship. After he would kill them, he would cuddle with them, and he would, have sex with them, and he would talk to them, and he felt like they were roommates, so to speak. And it gave him comfort, because in all likelihood, he believed deep down that no one would actually love him. Now, another factor in Jeffrey Dahmer's life, I was just looking at my notes during the break, is that when he was very young, one, he had parents that weren't very close. There was a lot of conflict, and it seems that he probably had some biological disposition for psychopathy, maybe from his mother, hard to say. But he went through this experience early in his life where he had a lot of problems with health, and he had surgery for a hernia when he was about 3 years old. And it was quite gruesome. It was very difficult for him. So, imagine you're 3 and you have to have your body cut open, and you have to go to the hospital, and you have to leave the comfort of your parents and your home, and how traumatizing that could be, depending on the way it's handled and depending on the way it's dealt with by the individual. And I think that played a role. Again, just speculation, it's hard to know. But after that, he started to cut open dead animal bodies, and then he started having fantasies of cutting open humans, and then he started having fantasies of wanting to kill his parents because his parents were quite conflictual and distant from him, and not a secure base for him. And then that eventually led to his serial killing behavior.
So when you look at the way he killed and the way he picked his victims, obviously he was homosexual. He was somebody who was attracted to African American men. And the way he chose his victims, he looked like somebody who was innocent. He didn't look like he had military background in training, because he did spend time in the military. He looked like somebody who was nerdy and weak and not a threat at all. Was that part of his persona, or was that part of the image he portrayed?
I think that was part of who he was. Hard to tell, but the accounts of him growing up was he was quite meek and forgettable and awkward, and didn't seem threatening at all to people. So I think that was part of who he was. I don't think he was the sort of a person like Ted Bundy who could act in a way to get people to like him. I don't think Jeffrey Dahmer had that ability to charm people into liking him. He had other aspects of psychopathy.
Was he able to turn it off and on, or once you get started, does it become like fentanyl or heroin where you just can't stop? You need that high and that rush of taking someone's life.
That's one way of looking at it for sure. And a lot of serial killers will talk about it that way, that it becomes this exhilarating experience the first few times they do it. But the effect wears off, and they have to do it again. And you'll see in the similar way that an alcoholic will have just one drink, and then a month later they'll have 3 drinks, and a month later they'll have 10 drinks, and then soon they're drinking every day. Some serial killers have, and some people who serial rapists and other kinds of serial assaultive people will exhibit that kind of pattern. Well, they'll have an itch to do it. They'll restrain themselves from doing it. They'll finally do it, and then they'll say, okay, that's it. That's just one time. I'm never going to do it again. The itch will build in them again. They'll do it again, and then it just increases from there. So, yeah, that's a way of looking at it for sure.
Can it be classified as an addiction?
It can be classified as compulsive. I wouldn't use the word addiction because that has a lot of different meanings, but compulsive, absolutely.
Question coming from Nikki in the chat room here. What is the psychology of 2 serial killers that work together? Is it a situation where there is a dominant person and a type of underling where one feeds off of the other in some way?
Well, the one that pops into my head are the older fella and the younger fella who killed people from their car with a sniper rifle. Do you remember these people?
I do. That was in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and there was definitely a dominant person in that group. The older fella was absolutely dominant, and the younger person probably never would have done that. In the same way that the Columbine killers, there seems to be a dominant person while the other person was seemingly not likely to do that. The Slender Man murders, if people are familiar with that, there seemed to be a dominant person and a person who was a follower. Those kinds of cases are interesting because, one way of looking at it is, well, the dominant person would have done it and they just needed an assistant, so to speak. But another way of looking at it is the two people often create this little world where they believe it's us versus them. And it's possible that if those two people had different sorts of friends, that they never would have done it, that there was something about the way these two people came together that bred this way of thinking that eventually led to murderous behavior.
So really, two people could feed off their energy then, even though one is dominant.
Yeah. And as a clinician, I've seen this before, not in murderers, but in enmeshed friendships where you have I can think of years ago working with a teen girl who was quite sad, quite depressed, and quite alienated, felt like she hated her parents, and she just felt like the world was against her and felt really bad and was lonely. And she was really desperate for a friend and was really often looking for friends. She would try to have a boyfriend and things wouldn't work out. But then she finally found a best friend, someone who she could really meld with. And they became inseparable. And although that's great, it's great to have a friend, but the way they built the friendship was against the world, against their families. In a way, you could say it became like a two-person little cult, in a sense, where they had their own language, they had their own belief system. They, if either one of them was nice to anyone else, it felt like a threat to their relationship. And absolutely, so the vast majority of those cases don't end up killing anyone, but it can become an issue because all their other relationships fall away, which can, be harmful to the individuals in the long run.
Mm-hmm. What about somebody like the Zodiac Killer? Now, PBR is asking this question in the chat room. Now, there's somebody down in San Francisco who has never been caught. The code has never been broken. Their victims were never the same. Could have been male, could have been female, old, young. It really didn't seem to matter. When you have somebody like that who has almost made a game out of it, where does that fall in the lines of psychology in trying to decipher what this human being is all about?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I haven't studied him or her, but I, from my limited understanding of the details, it's so clearly a psychopath, clearly a sadistic person, possibly someone who actually has something against society in general, and also authority and the police, because from my memory of the story, which is mainly from Zodiac, the movie, which is a great David Fincher movie, he took pleasure in messing with the police officers on some level and the press. And so that would make you feel powerful. It'd make you feel superior. It'd make you feel like you're getting revenge on everyone for some sort of harm you felt like people did to you. So, yeah, I think there is a different flavor to that sort of killing. But in all likelihood, that individual has the same basic issues as Ted Bundy and Dahmer and everyone else, which is lack of empathy, urges to hurt other people, an inability to soothe one's emotions, that kind of thing.
So when somebody like the Zodiac Killer goes around with absolutely no compassion, is that something that is a person who has absolutely no regard for anything in society outside of their own narcissism, or does it go beyond being narcissistic?
Well, absolutely. Their narcissism is a big part of it. They think they're, very much concerned with themselves, and they believe that they're better than other people. Ted Bundy and the Zodiac, particularly Ted Bundy, because we can study him because we actually have interviews with him, and maybe the Zodiac Killer. It's really hard to tell the Zodiac, because it's like, who knows what's going on in their mind. But with Ted Bundy, absolutely, he believed he was the best person on the planet, and he could defend himself in court, and he was the smartest guy in the room, and to his own detriment.
So with this guy or woman, we believe it's a man, who has never been caught, how does one stay on the lam like that? How does one stay away from police? Are they trying to calculate how to stay free so they can continue their lust of what they are doing? Or in the case of somebody like Ted Bundy, where he eventually, his emotions got the better of him, he screwed up, if we can use that term, which we're glad he did. Like, do they have control of that? Do they have that type of strong mindset? Because that takes a lot of discipline.
Yeah, it's possible that with the Zodiac Killer, well, one, he could have died, right? The other possibility is that he somehow was able to get on top of his urges. The other possibility is he never really had the urge to kill in the same way that other people did. He might have done it more in a more calculated way, in a way that he didn't actually, Ted Bundy had the itch. Jeffrey Dahmer had an itch that they had to scratch, like a compulsion. But it's possible that the Zodiac Killer wasn't like that. And so when the heat got too hot, he stopped. The other thing is that when you give people long enough in general, they tend to become less symptomatic over time. So people who are psychopathic and have, a lot of problematic behaviors at the age of 25, over time, they tend to mellow out. It's just something that you see in general in people. So it's possible that the Zodiac Killer just got old and mellowed out.
On that note, we got less than a minute left with you. This is a show that flew on by, my friend. It flowed really, really nice. Dr. Kirk Honda, tell everybody where they could find your podcast.
psychologyinseattle.com.
That's simple.
Yep.
And on iTunes.
Yep. Yeah, and all the places where you get podcasts. YouTube, we have a YouTube channel as well, Psychology in Seattle.
Hey, I really appreciate you doing this and going the distance with us tonight, Dr. Kirk. It has been just a real good experience in learning tonight, I think, for all of us out here in Spaced Out Radio Land. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Welcome. You're welcome. It was fun talking with you.
All right, you hold on, because I got to take this thing into break here, because we're going to go to the bottom of the hour. We're going to hop out for break. Then we're coming back with the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Day. Stay tuned. More Spaced Out Radio right around the corner.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot THAL, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Hey, Spaced Out Radio listeners, it's Dave Scott. I want you to check out a great documentary I'm involved in called Beyond the Spectrum, Mosson's UFO Files. Directed by Darcy Weir, the film follows Jaime Mosson's journey for mainstream journalistic truth in ufology in Mexico. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon Prime. If you're a member, watch it free. It's worth the watch. Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch. Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today. Coming up this September 21st and 22nd, all UFO eyes will be focused on Toronto for the 4th Annual Alien Cosmic Expo. Come listen to some of the biggest names and experiencers in ufology. Travis Walton, Paul Hellyer, Richard Dolan, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Randy Kramer, and Spaced Out Radio's own Dave Scott. Tickets are on sale now at aliencosmicexpo.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Did you know Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm here to take you on a paranormal journey each Saturday and Sunday night. Why change the station when you have it all right here? Together, we'll hang out and share some strange and scary stories. And don't forget, we have Psychic Sundays as well, so come tune in Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com, where we own the night.
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Great to have each and every one of you with us. Reminder, if you've missed most of this show or others, you can always go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you coming soon by the Gavinator. But currently, you can read up on the SOR Newswire and listen to the show live. Speaking of the news, let's get to the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, those stories that make you scratch your head. We're going to start off in London, England, where one day every year, as per tradition, Britain is invaded by swarms of flying ants. This year was no exception. The insects arrived in such vast numbers, though, they were actually seen from space. Yeah, the insects swept in south of England on Tuesday in an invasion that at first glance seemed to indicate we are living in the early stages of a disaster movie. So huge were the storms that weather radar mistook them for rain, a far more common phenomena on the British Isles. BBC weather presenter and meteorologist Simon King went as far as saying that he noticed the error on Twitter alongside a video, and he posted it saying, "Flying ants, swarms of them flying in the sky in South England are being picked up as rain on the radar image this morning." It's kind of gross if you think about it. We had a bunch of those this year. Ugh, it's grossed me out. But while the attack may seem unusual, it merely signaled the annual arrival of what has come to be known as Flying Ant Day. Mobs of the insects descend on locations around Britain on one day every summer. The creatures sweep in, take up residence on the streets, green land, and in the skies before disappearing hours later. The phenomena occurs because male and queen ants leave their colonies to mate when the conditions are just right. And while flying ants are spotted on several days throughout the year, the vast majority pick the exact same moment to head out of their nest to go look for a new mate, shall we say. Yeah, we'll leave it at mate. The creator of the Facebook page calling for a public invasion of Area 51, the top-secret Air Force facility in Nevada, has finally spoken publicly about the joke that's getting out of hand. California resident Maddie Roberts, who created Storm Area 51 on Facebook, "They can't stop us all," or make that stop all of us, revealed his identity to George Knapp. He is quoted as saying, "I posted it like on June 27th, and it was kind of a joke," Roberts said, "and then it waited for like 3 days, like 40 people And then it just completely took off out of nowhere. It's pretty wild. The page calls for a public invasion of the secret Air Force-run facility near Groom Lake, Nevada, on September 20th at 3 a.m. The facility has been subject of alien conspiracy theories for decades. As signatories for the page climbed higher, Robert said he grew worried the FBI would pay him a visit. The FBI is going to show up at my house, and it got a little spooky from there, he said. Roberts had previously communicated with NPR through Facebook Messenger, but under a pseudonym for fear of harassment. He says, I just thought it would be a funny idea for the meme page, he said, and it just took off like wildfire. It's entirely satirical, though, and most people seem to understand that. As of Wednesday, the page had garnered 1.5 million pledges from around the world to join the effort, and another 1.1 million people who say they are interested. Meanwhile, publicity of the story has obviously gone good for surrounding businesses, like the Area 51 Cafe. They're getting about 500 to 600 different hits a day on their website and Facebook pages. Connie West, the owner, which sells alien-themed food and novelty items there, says her rooms are now fully booked. Well, good for her. The big question is, does anybody show up? Are they silly enough to actually try it? Let's hope not. In Bellingham, Washington, the brother of a man whose body was used for medical training has filed a lawsuit against the Washington State City. Yeah, Robert Fox filed a federal lawsuit against Bellingham over the city fire department using the body of Bradley Ginn Sr. for training. The California resident's lawsuit is the fourth filed by a family member of Ginn, who died while Bellingham paramedics transported him from a nursing home to a hospital in July 2018. The Northern Washington City paid $75,000 each to Ginn's two adult children and faces a $15 million claim by Ginn's widow. The lawsuit claims torturous interference with a corpse occurred when 11 fire department employees practiced inserting breathing tubes before the body was transported to a funeral home. I don't know how I feel about that one. I think they should have asked for the family's permission. But training on a real body, I mean, I think that's smart. Kind of up in the air with that one. All right, let's move on here. You ever get that feeling that, when you're standing at the ocean to throw a message in a bottle, see where it goes, where it ends up? Well, a man relaxing in the waters of the Florida coast discovered a message in a bottle that had been thrown into Lake Michigan 24 years earlier. Gary Hendrickson said he was enjoying the Gulf water in Santa Rosa Beach when he spotted a bottle bobbing in the water nearby. Hendrickson uncorked the mystery bottle and discovered it contained a message from a man who had tossed it into Lake Michigan in 1995. The note says, "Hello, June 16th, 1995, Frankfort, Michigan. I've tossed this bottle into the water to bring joy to anyone who finds it. This whiskey bottle was full a few short hours earlier. If you find this, call me. I'll buy you a drink." Hendrickson said he attempted to send a text message to the number on the note, and to his surprise, it was still in service and still belonged to the author of the note. He's 49 years old now, Hendrickson said. It was a whole lot different time in his life, he said. He threw it in Lake Michigan, and we kind of talked about how it could have gotten down here. It's just amazing. And a long, long way it had to go. He said the two men discussed the possibilities and determined the bottle must have traveled all the way down the Mississippi River. That's kind of cool. I think there should be more of that. That's kind of cool when that happens. Imagine how many bottles are out there that have just never been discovered, that one day will just show up, hopefully. All right, bad Canadians here. Bad Canadians. Darcy, or make that Darcy, where the hell did I get Darcy from? Darren and Carolyn Carter, who own a taxidermy business in the province of Alberta, shared photos of their lion kills on social media before later disabling their company's Facebook and Instagram pages. So, according to reports, the Canadian couple recently went on a trophy hunting trip in South Africa where they shot and killed at least 2 lions. Yeah, Well, this isn't going over very well because in one of the photos with this giant lion that's dead on the ground, it shows the Carters kissing next to the body. Not very romantic. Hard work in the hot Kalahari sun, one of the reports said. Under the photo, a monster lion. There is nothing like hunting the king of the jungle, the couple wrote, along with a different shot of a dead lion, according to the news that reported this. South Africa's Legalila Safaris also posted a photo of the Canadian couple kissing next to the body of the dead lion as well, though it's unclear if the Carters went on their hunting trip. The safari was not responded to requests for interviews. The shot quickly circulated online and even earned outrage of animal lovers across social media, called it photo evil and disgusting. Yeah, well, here's where it gets a little more interesting. Darren Carter's 19-year-old daughter, Sydney, who has her own YouTube channel, well, she posted a video. Yeah, apparently she's not too impressed with dear old dad. She says, I will never understand people like that who take pride in shooting a beautiful animal like a lion. I'll never understand it. Yeah, then she goes on to say, yeah, she never plans to call her father again because of his actions. Of course, PETA got involved, responded to the photo, calling for a worldwide ban on trophy hunting and for UPS to stop the importation of hunting trophies. Here's the stat that really got me, though, and I didn't realize this. Trophy hunts are legal and practiced in 63 countries. Who are the main hunters? Well, Americans make up 80% of trophy hunters' tour clientele. Not sure how I feel about that. I kind of like animals. Not PETA type, but not a fan of the trophy hunting. A fan of hunting. No problem if you're eating it. No problem whatsoever. Not for the trophy, though. Not cool. Now, let's head to California. Let's go to Berkeley, where City Council, trying to become more inclusive in society, adopted an ordinance Tuesday to replace gendered language in the city's municipal code with neutral terms. So, personal pronouns like she, he, her, and him will change to they and them. Fireman or firewoman now become firefighter. Manpower will be eschewed for human effort or workforce, while maintenance hole will replace manhole. In total, more than 24 commonly used terms will be changed in the city code after the measure unanimously passed. Let's read some other one. You can't use bondsman anymore. That's bondsperson. Not allowed to say brother. That's sibling. Chairman now becomes chairperson. Craftsman now becomes craftspeople or artisans. Fireman, firewoman, firemen, firewomen, or firefighter or firefighters. Heirs, beneficiaries. Yeah. Maiden, family. So I guess when Iron Maiden comes to town, they are now Iron Family. According to Berkeley. Male and female, people of different genders. Manhole, of course, maintenance hole. Repairman is now repairs or repairer. Salesman, salesperson or salespeople. Sister, not allowed to say sister anymore. It's now sibling. Really? Sister and brother? Come on. Come on. Oh, sportsman now? Not allowed to say sportsman. You're hunters. Watchmen are guards. The masculine pronoun includes the feminine. Words referring to a specific gender may be extended to any other gender. Pregnant? Oh, here's a good one. We'll end it on this one. Pregnant. Pregnant women or woman? Not allowed. Pregnant employees. Has this not gone too far? Dictating which language you can use? Look, I really don't care what you are, what color you are, what sex you are, what anything you are. As long as you treat me well, I don't care. But should a government really dictate, especially in a community, what can and cannot be said in its books and guidelines? I don't get it. So, the measures follow a move in February that allows city employees to opt for preferred pronouns on their name badges. The changing in the city's forms and updating them will cost the city $600. A list of words to be changed will be posted at public libraries and the council chambers within 15 days of adoption. The ordinance does not include a timeline for when the change must happen. Getting ridiculous. Finally, officials in West Palm Beach, Florida are trying a new method of driving homeless people away from a city-owned rental facility. They're blasting children's music. The wildly popular and extremely repetitive children's songs, Baby Shark and Raining Tacos, play on an endless loop throughout the night. Mayor Keith James has said it's a temporary measure to keep the homeless from the city's waterfront space, but advocates for the homeless say it's cruel treatment of those in need. Officials say the children's songs serve as a deterrent around the city's Lake Pavilion, a glass-walled events venue overlooking the downtown waterfront that hosted 164 events over the last year. West Palm Beach expects to collect $240,000 this coming year from such events, and in recent weeks, Mr. James said unpleasant remnants like human feces have been found around the pavilion's entrance. When people pay good money for it, they should be able to enjoy the facility they pay for. How about making some little cities, some little houses for them so they don't have to live on the street? It's a good taxpayer innovation. Helps the homeless, too. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Twitter and Facebook pages and read your responses on the air, because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. In detail, how many serial killers do you think are roaming around free right now? Matthew, more than we want to think about. Kelly, it would seem to me that it's impossible task to measure. Serial killers generally keep under the radar until the police put the pieces together. After that, I believe the killer gets a thrill from the police trying to hunt them down. Then we know about said serial killer. Heidi, I think a more interesting question is how many people graduate to be within the descriptive scope of being a serial killer each year, and is this number increasing? Francesca, when it took them more than 10 years to figure out one dude killed over 85 people, and now you know psychos lowball their actuals. Gabe thinks it's in the thousands. Kevin, just one, but he is extremely busy, Dave, and cannot come on to your show. Very sorry. Okay. Gail, the FBI says around 50 at any given time. Marty, our favorite veteran around here. Thanks for serving, Marty. There are more serial killers in the population percentage-wise than most people would believe, and in my opinion, it has been that way for centuries. It is only recently that we have identified them as a separate category from the rest of the human race. Mary, 10 times more than the FBI statistics. Jim Mallard, the Duck. How many murders does it take to become a serial killer? I think it's more than 2, isn't it? More than 2? Dave, counting Congress, at least 535. Catherine, 0.2% of the established population in any given area. Renee, thing is, in what country? According to this article, the USA is unmatched among the world's countries with 2,743 serial killers, amounting to 67.41% of the entire world serial killers record. So I would say hundreds in the U.S. alone are roaming around. Tim, dozens. We have one here in southern Ohio targeting addicts and prostitutes. Even a Discovery show, The Missing, in Columbus, 45 miles north. A lot of missing prostitutes along I-71 there. Goes through a few years back, several prostitutes at truck stops here. And the Midwest would see bodies show up weeks and months later. A refrigerated trailer was suspected. Dr. Doom, apparently the CB handle. Brian, I believe in the 80s or 90s, FBI estimated 1 in 10 persons had serial killer tendency, has been revamped to 2 in 10. As such, in the U.S. alone, given 327 million people, we're looking at around 800,000 that have a tendency to do it. So, I would assume that there are around 400,000 individuals that are serial killers running around freely in the United States, lest we forget the Great White North, where you have around 72,000 fitting that bill. Of course, they're the Toronto Maple Leafs fans. They haven't won a cup since 1967. Of course they're upset, angry. They should be. All right, moving on. Let's see here. Eric. Well, there's none in Pahrump. We feed them to the reptilians. Anthony believes there's 100. Roy gets the final word tonight. I could have nodded hello to one this week and didn't even know. Sometimes wolves don't look like wolves. They blend in perfectly. Worldwide, I'd go 60 right now. In the United States, I'd say 35 to 40. It's always been said that there are about 50 active at any given time, so I'll take 40. Hey, Roy, we'll talk to you tomorrow night on the show. You're our guest. Yeah. Big thanks to Captain Shirk for putting the news together at the SOR Newswire, which can be found at spacedoutradio.com, and to everybody playing along on the thought of the day. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Big thanks to Dr. Kirk Honda for coming in as well, talking about the psychology of serial killers. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Special thanks to everybody tonight for listening in. You know who you are, at home, in your cars, at work, in our chat rooms, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, wherever you may be. Thank you for sharing your evening with us. Because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Good night.